Hey, my dear friends, Alon Mizrahi here, the Mizrahi Perspective, your freedom Ayatollah. If I asked you, what is the West's most dangerous weapon? What is the West's most lethal weapon? What is their strategic weapon? What is their weapon of choice? The default weapon system they reach out for wherever they are faced with any kind of conflict or resistance. If I ask you this, what would be your answer? I'm going to go back to this in a minute because this is a very important question. So I want to leave it open for just a minute or two as I explain what I'm going to talk about and how this video is going to play out. Like other videos, like previous videos I made during this war, I'm going to talk about what's happening in the wars plural, that Iran is fighting now against the West, against Israel, against its um Western puppet Arab rulers in the Persian Gulf, in West Asia. And I'm going to talk about the events, but I'm also going to talk about the narratives that shape the events and the perception of the events. This is the Mizrahi perspective. I always combine the two. This is very important. This is something mainstream media never does and will never do. Okay? And I'm going to talk about this more in a second when I answer the question I asked you at the beginning of this video. What is the West's most dangerous, most lethal weapon? Now, 2.5 years ago, when I started creating content in English and I started writing on Twitter, and maybe a year after that, I started making videos as well. One point have been making consistently, and people who have followed me throughout this will know. I said Israel is going to always escalate. You remember this. If you watched anything that I did, anything that I wrote, you know this. You know this point. I always said Israel is going to escalate. I said it is going to invade Lebanon, it is going to attack Iran again, it is going to do the unthinkable and attack and attack and attack and attack and attack. Now, Israel attacked Iran 2.5 weeks ago, together with the US, after convincing, pressuring, dominating the US into fighting this war for Israel. This is purely an Israeli war. And just today, or maybe it's yesterday, depending on where you are when you're watching this, Israel attacked Iranian natural gas infrastructure and escalated this war into a whole new level, into a whole new place. So this is the Israeli logic. Israel is going to continue doing this. Israel is going to continue escalating. It is going to continue escalating and attacking Iranian infrastructure. It is going to attack potentially other countries. It could attack the US itself. It could attack Monaco. It could attack Indonesia. It could attack Malaysia. It could attack Australia. Israel will continue to escalate. And the only time where Israel stops escalating is when Israel is no more. And I've known this fact of life without any doubt for a long time. And when I said it over and over again, which allowed me to predict what Israel is going to happen, even if sometimes my timing was maybe a month off or a half year off, or maybe a year off. But this rule allows me to always know what Israel is going to do because Israel is going to escalate. Why Israel is always escalating and where does it lead? I'm not going to talk about in this video. This is a different conversation. But we are here because of Israeli mentality, because of Zionist mentality. This is purely an Israeli war. Now, granted its wish and a big war with Iran will very probably be the end of Israel. The actual end of Israel, which may not be far off, could be weeks. I'm not even kidding. And Israel is going to continue escalating throughout however this is going to take. Now I'm going to return to the original question I asked you. What is the West's most lethal, most dangerous weapon? And it is not even something we think about as a weapon. It is not a missile, it is not a ship, it is not an airplane. The West's strategic and most dangerous weapon is the lie. And when I say this, you know it's true. You feel this is true. The West's ability to control and dominate much of humanity's story stems from the extensive, unmitigated, uninhibited use it makes of lying. This is the centerpiece of Western identity, the lie. The lie of freedom, the lie of democracy, the lie of prosperity, the lie of equality, the lie of seeking peace, the lie of diplomacy, the lie of feminism, the lie of green energy, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. It is endless. We live in a world made completely of lies. We live in a world made completely, completely, completely of lies. No part of the world that we see in the West and anywhere that's influenced by the West is true. No part. And if the Gaza Holocaust and if the Epstein scandal didn't make this clear to you, I hope this message will. But you probably don't need it at this point. I'm just making things, bringing them into the surface and giving them explicit, clear language. And if the West's biggest weapon, mightiest, most dangerous weapon, the weapon that is really the foundation of Western civilization, of Western identity, of US politics, of US, you can add and add and add nouns to this list. Iran's weapon in this war, you know it already, is the truth. And what Iran has been doing, as I told you, I always connect events with narratives. Okay? Always. What Iran is doing is cutting through the fake, fabricated, engineered existence that the West and Western powers have assumed is going to go on forever, unchallenged, unbroken. And I'm going to give you some examples. The idea that Iran's Arab neighbors, the Western puppets, can create this fake reality, this American made, this is Western made, the West is made of lies. The idea that they can create this fake bubble, this fake world, where money from oil flows endlessly and they can buy the whole world and every sports team and media outlet and skyscraper and a piece of infrastructure that they want anywhere in the world, basically, almost, while oppressing their people and being really slave regimes, slave systems, while relying on the US to sustain this fake false structure, is now collapsing. Iran has made this lie null and void. It's gone. It's dead. Iran introduced truth to the Persian Gulf. Now, all the illusions and the lies and the stories that the West tried to tell about the Persian Gulf, about Dubai, they are gone. They are gone. And Iran managed to do this by using its power strategically, thoughtfully, not in a wild and savage way, in a very strategic manner. This is one lie that Iran killed, and the West is now weakened for it. Because every time you remove a layer of lies, the West shrinks and is revealed in its true monstrous identity or character. The other lie that Iran exposed and is now gone out the window is the idea that the US is this unstoppable military power that no one can contend with. No one can withstand. No one. They just crush. They just crush. Exposed as a lie. The US can do nothing to open the Strait of Hormuz. They can do nothing. They can do nothing. The two aircraft carriers that the US sent to destroy Iran now ran away. They are not in the region anymore. One is in Greece, the other is hiding somewhere. They are not part of the game. These were the weapon systems that were designed to carry the lie of white supremacy and American supremacy and exceptionalism and enforce it upon the rest of humanity. And this lie too is exposed by Iran. The lie that the West can control and manipulate the global energy markets, the global financial markets, endlessly through speculation and narrative control and suppression of every rival power. Gone, gone, over, exposed. The lie that the West represents some kind of moral high ground is already died in Gaza for us. We didn't need Iran for this. We were ripe for Iran to take on the US militarily because we no longer saw anyone who watched what unfolded in Gaza, what is still unfolding in Gaza. We were ready for Iran to take on the US because we didn't see the US as a moral authority anymore, and we will never see the US as a moral authority anymore. Never again. This is one never again that is actually valid. Never again. The US will never be a moral authority, a moral power in the world. That's it. Even if tomorrow Jeffrey Sachs or some pacifist or Jill Stein becomes the US president, which will never happen, of course, the US will not be seen as a moral power for generations to come. So when we talk about what's happening militarily, which I'm going to do in a second, we mustn't forget the big story that's the best part of it. Perhaps the most important part of it, because this is the real world war that's happening now. Can we have a world of white masters from the US dominating the rest of the planet and deciding who can have medicine, who can have food, who can have clean water, who can live today or just be bombed with their children in their home? Iran is bringing this era to an end through its very strict adherence to truth. When Iran negotiated, it negotiated in earnest. When it said it was going to do something, if Israel did something, it fulfilled its promise. When it said it wasn't developing nuclear weapons, it didn't develop nuclear weapons. And by the way, and just this is just a small aside. Many people think that Iran would have been better off with nuclear weapons. I'm not sure this is the case because if Iran had nuclear weapons, if Iran had announced 10 years ago that it has nuclear weapons, the result of this would have been a sanctions regime that would destroy Iran as a country completely. This would play into Israeli propaganda and into American propaganda. So Iran may have pulled a genius trick by remaining on the threshold of having nuclear capability, but not crossing it. Anyway, that's an aside that's it. I'm not going to talk about this anymore. So this is one aspect of the war that we should keep in mind. We should always look at the cultural clash that's happening because this is so big now. This is why this is so wonderful. The fact that Iran manages to neutralize US military power and Israeli military power. And not only neutralize, but cause damage and pain. And by the way, Israel is being bombarded right now with missiles and whatnot. Yesterday, Iran attacked 2 train stations in Israel. And I fully expect the Iranian, the devastation of Israeli infrastructure, which is very gentle, delicate, and meager. Israel is a tiny, tiny country. One refinery, 3 or 4 main highways, one train line, 3 communication centers, 10 major military bases. This is it. That's all. I'm not revealing any secrets here. But I think that this is what Iran is going to pursue now. Now, in the second half of this video, which is going to be only available on my Substack for my subscribers, I'm going to talk about Iran's endgame. Where is Iran going with this? But this is the second part of this video. For now, I want to move on to the way Israel is conducting itself versus the way Iran is conducting itself, which I'm going to talk about in more detail again in the second half of this video on my Substack. Assassinations. Assassinations. Israel made assassinations perhaps the cornerstone of its defense philosophy. It assassinates and assassinates and assassinates and assassinates. And what does it achieve with all the assassinations? And perhaps the bigger question, the more interesting question is, when you look at how Israel is behaving, how it goes about its military mission, the way it sees it, its deranged vision of its present and future, you can clearly see that Israel as a country and Zionism as a movement has only tactics, but no strategy. Only tactics and no strategy. And I almost wanted to call this video tactical successes in a sea of strategic collapse or calamity or failure. Because if you look at the Israeli military history, and it's not only military is just one aspect of the Israeli mentality. You can see that this is how Israel acts. So Israel always has limited tactical achievements all the time. All the time. You can look at Israel's big win in 1967, for instance, where it defeated Arab militaries, Egypt and Jordan and Syria and other countries that joined them, and occupied new land and became a big, strong power in West Asia. This big military win, this tactical achievement, didn't improve Israel's strategic position one bit. On the contrary, it brought millions of embittered people, of occupied people under Israel's military dictatorship. And they were wise. They learned how to resist. They acquired language. They became influential. Palestine became a global phenomenon. And Israel became more and more hated. So in 6 days, Israel scored a major tactical win. Strategically, it got defeated. And you can look at and more examples of this. Everything you can see is Israel's invasion of Lebanon in 1982. Israel managed to occupy parts of Lebanon, remove the PLO, remove Yasser Arafat and his following, his friends, the PLO network in Lebanon. They removed them from Lebanon. They went over to Tunis. Strategically, what happened? Israel created Hezbollah. And I can give you another example and another example and another example of this. This is how Israel behaves. It doesn't see a normal future. This is why it's committed to always escalating. It can't see a future where it interacts with other people as equals in a normal environment, where everyone has a voice and a place. This doesn't exist in the Zionist ethos. Israel needs to destroy, to dominate, to occupy, to strike, to dazzle, to amaze, to conquer, to advance into defeat and into nothingness. Into defeat and into nothingness. Iran has managed to achieve in the wars it is fighting now, which are multiple wars. It is not one war. And I'm going to repeat this in every video. There's one war with the US, there's another war with the rest of the West, there's a war with neighboring Arab regimes, and there's the war with Israel. And these are different wars. It's not one, which Iran has to manage at once, and it's doing this spectacularly. Spectacularly. On the major front of the war with the US, which was the most crucial and the most dangerous for Iran, Iran already looks like it has won this war mainly. The appetite in the US to go all in and commit to a war against Iran is now down to almost zero. And every day Trump is pulling away. He's entertaining some fantasies about occupying this, taking this, but he also says maybe we'll just pull out. The reason there is no appetite in the US for attacking Iran, and remember, in the first days of this war, American representative hilariously spoke about the US taking over Iranian oil and making a how is this, how is the idiom, making a, like cracking the jackpot. We're going to make so much money out of Iranian oil because we are going to take it over. And the reality is now that Iran is selling more oil than it did before the war. And it controls the Strait of Hormuz completely, and the US can do nothing. And the idea of sending hundreds of thousands, I mean, recruiting them, the US cannot even do something like this anymore. It's done. I mean, Trump is so unpopular. And Iran, with its wise strategic thinking, gave this war time and used time, weaponized time. Iran weaponized time. Because what it has achieved in 2 weeks is oil prices beginning to rise, Americans becoming bitter, its control of the Hormuz Strait creates division in the Western Front because Iran doesn't want a Western coalition to be created against it. So now all of Europe is saying, no, 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 and Australia and Canada, all of America's, I'm not gonna say the word I want to say. All of America's slaves and vassal states are saying we are not joining this. No, 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 no. No country. I heard maybe Denmark is saying yes. No country is joining this. So using time as an asset, Iran diffused and neutralized any appetite for military adventures on behalf of the US in the Persian Gulf. And it is because Iran is so mighty militarily and it has been so well prepared. The US now doesn't want anything to do with this. I mean, generally, the American public, the American political system, no one wants this. They are looking for an off ramp. And I don't think that they are going to pull away today or tomorrow. But they cannot commit to a full out war, which means Iran has won this. Iran has won the war against the US, and to add insult to injury or injury to insult, Iran has dismantled American military presence in West Asia and it's not coming back anymore. The US is not returning to Qatar and Bahrain and all those countries with huge radars and third battery systems and so on and huge military bases. This is it. the ability of the US to rebuild something like this, to have the political will and the military capability, the engineering capability, the manufacturing capability, the geopolitical skill and connection to recreate this, it's not happening again. It's not happening again. And again, this is another lie that Iran dismissed and dissipated. The lie that this constellation of American military presence in West Asia guarantees American domination and the longevity of regimes that are loyal to the US, gone. Now they are all hanging by a thread. And in the second part of this video, I'm going to talk about what I think Iran's end game is. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this aspect of about Iran's neighbors. But they are all now, Iran has started attacking energy manufacturing capabilities in the Persian Gulf, in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, and so on and so on. Because Israel attacked, Israel escalated, Iran is reciprocating. So in the first war against the US, Iran is mostly winning, has mostly won. Okay, this is what I want to say. In the second war of shaping a new political reality in the Persian Gulf, Iran is winning big time. And remember that it hasn't applied all the tools and instruments that it have in its arsenal. I mean, far from it. These are the initial phases of what Iran wants to do and wants to accomplish. So this is the second war. And the third war against Israel, Iran has moved on to a new phase of beginning to attack Israeli infrastructure. And because Israel is so fragile and delicate in terms of its resistance to attacks, in terms of its size, in terms of its just numbers, population numbers, it's a tiny country with a very weak and limited industrial base. Iran is moving on to the next phase, and I think that this is how I understand it. Iran wanted to make sure, first, that the US is not committing to full-on war, because this is Iran's biggest concern. They want to make sure that a big Western coalition is not formed, and it's not forming. And they wanted to make sure that that the US is not committing to a full-on war, which Iran would still win, but this is a big headache, big, bloody, expensive, prolonged, brutal. So Iran mostly already can check these boxes. Having established that, it can move on to the next objectives, to the next goals, which is changing the political reality in the Persian Gulf and fucking up Israel in a really bad, memorable, irreversible way. This is how I see it. And I'm going to talk about this again in a minute in the second part of this video. So looking at what Iran has been able to accomplish in less than 3 weeks, it is kind of amazing. And what the US and Israel have been able to accomplish on the other hand is mostly symbolic. Israel assassinated Khamenei and assassinated Larijani and assassinated this general and this commander and so on and so on. But this has no impact. This has no impact on Iran's willingness to fight, on Iran's capability, on Iran's vision. They are truly a decentralized um, effort or campaign or movement. It's not about one figure. It's about a collective vision and a collective effort. So they have prepared their plans, and because they know and can anticipate how Israel and the US will behave, because it's really easy to anticipate, they are now where they are strategically. And you can clearly see how Israel is moving from one tactical success to another tactical success to another strategic defeat and failure. Remember, they eliminated Hezbollah and a major part of the um, like the heads or the leadership of Hezbollah, and they had this pager attack. This had a huge psychological impact. This was seen as a major tactical breakthrough. Strategically, what has it done for Israel? It has done nothing for Israel. And now Israel is in worse shape than it was 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. And if you look at Israeli history, this is like a big university course, which we're not going to do here. This is a very well defined and easily seen characteristic of Israeli behavior and the Zionist mindset. They need to um, impress and dazzle and overwhelm and have this shock and awe impact. But they never think about the day after. There's, it's like they're like, it's like a handicap. They don't have this ability. And Iran has tons of it. Iran has tons of it. You can see that Iran prepared for different scenarios. When something happens, they don't improvise a response or a reaction. They are ready. They thought about this beforehand. So we can see like two different cultures clashing here in many senses, in more than one sense. This is a big civilizational clash, and I talked about this in previous videos, but you can see one is able to plan in advance and prepare, and one can only do like dazzling, sparkly, small, uh, fading achievements, and that's it. And just to finish this part of this video, before I move on to talk about Iran's endgame, uh, another strategic aim of Iran, strategic. This is not something they do with one missile barrage or two or five. Strategic. Look what Iran has been able to achieve, which is amazing. By using time like they use it, by being militarily prepared like they have been, by taking control of the Strait of Hormuz the way they've done it, which is not like hermetically sealing it, but acting like a boss and saying you can pass and you cannot pass, and you pay in this coin, and you by acting like this, Iran has been able to achieve something we wouldn't have been able to imagine a year ago or 2 years ago. Iran has isolated Israel. Do you get this? Do you get this part? Iran has isolated Israel. All the countries that stood by Israel and drove us nuts during the Gaza Holocaust, all of them, the UK, France, Australia, Canada, all the bunch of them. And we thought it looked like they actually glued together with Israel in an inseparable way. You cannot divide them. Now they are leaving Israel alone. They are being forced by real politics, by geopolitics, by uh, economic necessity, by survival instinct, to separate themselves from Israel and let Israel and the stupid US fight this war alone. Because the way they protected Israel in Zionism throughout the Gaza Holocaust, you would think that Israel has absolute control over them. And whatever they are going to do, Israel has total dominance over their affairs. But now we can see that this is not the case. Iran has managed to do what no one has ever been able to do, and this is separate Israel from the rest of the West. And now everyone can see and is being forced to admit that Israel caused this. And one of the biggest lies, the West is a heap of lies, that the US mainstream media is now trying to keep up, is the idea that Israel has nothing to do with this. This war caught Israel unawares. They would just all of a sudden there's war with Iran because the US wanted this war so much, and Israel had nothing to do with this. Israel had nothing. But this is a joke at this stage. This is a joke. And now American establishment media, this is not like the Gaza Holocaust, where people had to take a moral stand, and it was difficult. Now it's, what are you talking about? Israel has nothing to do with this. What do you mean Israel didn't push the US? What do you mean Israel doesn't have power over the US? So why was Netanyahu 50 times at the White House? More than Trump in the past year or so. What do you mean Israel has no power over you? When Netanyahu has been pushing for this war for 40 years. I mean, this stance is so ridiculous. But now it's so transparent because Iran made it so. Because Iran made it so. Iran made this genius move, a tactical move that supports a strategy, using oil tactically to serve the strategic objective of separating Israel from the West. This is the use of tactics when you actually want what you want to achieve, where you want to go. And Iran has been able to achieve this, and because many countries are now being forced. I mean, the only power that could break the spell that the Zionist lobby has in virtually every Western country is the power of expensive oil, and oil that no one can get because it's very scarce. This is the only thing that the Zionist lobby cannot overcome. And this is exactly what Iran brought into the equation. Now, I mean, Western whore regimes, when they were forced to choose between their moral integrity and the lives of children and babies and standing with Israel, they had no problem. They chose Israel. They are whores. But when they are faced with expensive oil, with economic implications, and standing with Israel, they abandon Israel. They abandon Israel, and they even abandon the US. They even abandoned the US. Iran not only isolated Israel, they isolated the US too. If this is not amazing, if this is not, I don't know, almost an unimaginable scenario, I don't know what is. But now I'm going to move on to this second part of this video, which I'm going to continue on Substack. So for everyone watching me on YouTube, and my videos are picking up steam, picking up, they're getting more views, which is great. I'm still demonetized, So I have to rely on Substack. Anyway, see you in the next Mizrahi Perspective video, and thank you. But people watching on Substack, don't go anywhere because I want to talk about Iran's endgame, what Iran wants to achieve, and